Yeah, so Marmalade is a cross-platform tool that you can, the whole concept is develop your game or your application once and then deploy it to many platforms. So today we support iOS and Android, of course. We also have full support for Windows, ties in. Also, we're moving into more of the TV space with LG TV, Roku, Google TV as well. So it's really about making that app very transferable. You know, maybe you start on iOS to start, but it gives you many more channels by taking it to the other device platforms. And Marmalade's at the heart of that. So I think with most developers, they're obviously trying to find more eyeballs that can see their or get access to their app. And we do find that going global is very important. We do find in Japan, South Korea, Australia, China, these are really untapped markets outside of the West. And the key when you go into those markets, you really need to think about, I mean, it's an old adage, you know, think global, act local. You really have to do that around your app. You need to tailor your app to be really focused on the local languages, you know, language support, the localization, all those sorts of things. Key integrations with the local store in-apps and things like that. So really when you're taking your game out there, your application out there to the global platform, think about the region. Don't think it's just easy to put it out anywhere. Yeah, I think one of the key things we're finding across the world, again, is the way that app developers are keeping engaged with their user base is that constant updating, getting feedback about the game out there, inputting that feedback into the game or the application and getting that back out to the teams very quickly. And this is why we've focused on a cross-platform type strategy, because the developers are looking for multiple platforms. If you're having to keep multiple platforms updated individually, that's a very difficult thing to do. So for us, we've tried to make it very easy for you to update, keep that engagement level. And we know companies that are doing updates at least on a weekly basis just to keep you live. And everybody sees a little bit of an uptick in their downloads each time a new update's out there. So I think it's very critical to do that, get that feedback loop coming in, getting your users to feedback into your application and then pushing it out there. And then you're right, you've got to think about how your specific region's going to interact. You know, the UK is definitely going to be very different than Korea and very different than Japan. So again, you're going to have a very clear feedback loop and getting those updates out there as quickly as possible. I think with most of our feedback, it's about what kind of local integrations and third parties they want to work with. There may be specific, you know, in-app purchase companies in the different regions, different store integrations that need to happen with the different regions. That is all going to make it much easier for the consumer or the end user to be interacting with that application. And again, it varies from region to region. But that's most of it that we're getting back from ours, and that's where we can interact. Now, with the direct app developer to the consumer, I think it's more about the gameplay. It's more about, you know, subtle variations about how a region might be using it. But for us, it's more about what kind of technologies we need to have within our tools, so it makes it much easier for the app developer to reach those end consumers. We are finding that, you know, the developers are looking for help, and we have the advantage, we have our own game studio. So there's a Marmalade game studio out there, so somebody building games, and we can learn from them about how a game's being developed. One of the things we'll be doing this year is a lot more case study work. We are looking at even putting in reference designs about how to build your game and the steps you need to go through. And again, working with third parties like Emobi and things like that, I think we can tell or at least explain to the app developers an easier way to allow them to focus on what's really important. That's how their game works, how the gameplay works, how their monetization schemes are going to work, how they're going to actually generate revenue from the applications they're developing. And where we try to do with Marmalade is, again, take part of that development activity out, things like cross-platform. There's us, there's many other developers or tools companies out there that would allow you to not have to worry about cross-platform, just focus on the area that you can differentiate yourself out there in the marketplace and let everybody else, the other, you know, integrations, the third-party providers, let them specialize in those. And when you bring it all together, you have a much better game, much more differentiated, and I think you'll be more successful. But all of us in the ecosystem have to make this easier. There's too many apps out there. It's getting very difficult to get noticed. We need other platforms to be successful. We're certainly hoping the Windows platform is going to be able to make it. We'd like to see Tizen come back and not just be about wearables and be more about digital devices. We'd like to see other architectures out there being successful, say Intel and things like that. So for all of us, we can see quite a bright future. But right now it's quite difficult and fragmented. I think the developers could use a lot of help on understanding that through the books like Apponomics, through our own reference flows, through us specializing on our specific texts.